So, sounds like Daredevil may be coming to Disney Plus and getting his very own project in the MCU. Of course, by this point, we've all heard the rumors and reports of Charlie Cox returning as Matt Murdock for Spider-Man No Way Home, and of course, there's also rumors of him popping up in other projects like the Hawkeye Disney Plus series, the She-Hulk Disney Plus series, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I think I even saw one time of him popping up in Moon Knight, so who knows what is going on here, and we really aren't going to know for sure until we actually do see this character pop up in the MCU, but I really hope he does, because I love Daredevil, I love Charlie Cox in the role. The series was amazing. Fortunately, it was cut short because of the whole Disney Marvel deal. And I want to see more of him, and especially in the MCU, teaming up with characters like Tom Holland Spider-Man and Jennifer Walters She-Hulk, who's going to be played by Tatiana Maslany. Like, that's just really cool. And if/when Daredevil does come to the MCU, I don't want him to just be a supporting character in other people's projects. Obviously, that's something I do want to see from the character, but I also want to see him get his own solo project, whether that's a new Daredevil movie or a brand new rebooted Daredevil series. And now, we may have just gotten an update on a possible Daredevil project in development for the MCU, because we just got some new reports from Main Middleman on Twitter, who's actually relatively new to the Scoop community, but I think his track record has panned out pretty well so far. So, of course, as always, just take this with a grain of salt, consider it a rumor for now, but he did say, quote, "Discussions about Daredevil have brought the future of the character in the MCU into question. Sounds like Matt Murdock will appear in many other productions before he gets his first MCU solo. Anyway, there is in fact a project about the Man Without Fear in early development." So that right there is already lining up with other things we've heard previously. Again, about this character popping up in other characters' projects like Spider-Man No Way Home, like She-Hulk, like Hawkeye, like possibly the Hawkeye series spin-off Echo, because he is heavily tied to that character, and then eventually leading to his own project in the MCU, which I think could work really, really well. And of course, one of the big questions there would be, do they reboot it or bring in new characters and new cast and just ignore everything that the character went through in the Netflix series? And this is when he goes into later in a later tweet saying some secondary and supporting characters will also return, some of them with the familiar faces you know already. About the actors, don't expect them to return. These are the consequences of a reboot and scheduling conflict. So yeah, that is a little disappointing there. So again, it does sound like they are rebooting the character, just bringing in the same actors, which makes sense that they'd want to do that, so then they don't have to have the baggage of that series, even though it's such a good series. But he says don't expect them all to return. So hopefully we see maybe at least the same actors and actresses for like Foggy Nelson and Karen Page. I'd like to see that at least. Of course, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. I don't really know who else you would bring back. Thinking back, it's been a while since I've watched the series, but that would suck if they didn't bring back those actors and actresses, because they were so good in that series, and I'd love to see more of them. But as he says here, these are the consequences of a reboot and scheduling conflict. But another thing that people have been wondering about when it comes to Matt Murdock, Daredevil joining the MCU is the rating, because the Daredevil Netflix series was definitely not PG-13. It was like hard. Well, wasn't hard R, but like definitely in the violence. Like it was a gory, brutal, violent series. And of course, at least at this point, the MCU doesn't do rated R. At least not yet. So this is what Main Middleman had to say about that. What is also being discussed at this point is whether there will be projects developed outside of Disney Plus focusing on productions besides PG-13 for characters like these. It is not a simple decision for a company like Disney, but my guess is that it is inevitable. So, just from that section right there, sounds interesting that definitely Marvel Studios is thinking about creating projects that are not restricted to PG-13, maybe dipping more into the rated R territory, which works really well with a lot of these characters, like Daredevil, like the Punisher, maybe Moon Knight, but I doubt they're doing that since it's already on Disney+. But if they do that, it most likely will be for a different streaming service, because again, it does say outside of Disney+, so thinking probably Hulu, because that's where we've gotten some other stuff from Marvel in the past. That's something I wouldn't mind. I mean, as long as it's part of the MCU, I think that'd be really cool. And again, it fits with the character. Like, Daredevil's a really violent character, and like the stories that can be told with him, I think it fits really well to go with that brutal rating for the character and the project. So I think that honestly could be really cool to see here. And again, all of this sounds great. It is just, again, considered a rumor for now, but this sounds amazing. I would love to see a solo MCU Daredevil project coming in the next few years, whether that's on Disney Plus or on Hulu or whatever, but I'd love to see him join the MCU, have his own project, bring back some of the talent from the Netflix series, and just continue the story, because I think that'd be really, really great to see. And that's all the news from Main Middleman, but we do also have a report from another source, that being Levi from Twitter. His Twitter handle is the Devil of HK, and this is a source that has actually put out some stuff about Spider-Man No Way Home that was proven with the Spider-Man No Way Home teaser trailer. So, there's some validity here. And he is saying that Dex is back. Dex, of course, referring to Poindexter, aka Bullseye, from Daredevil Season 3. And he's saying here that Bullseye is coming back and joining the MCU. Wilson Bethel, actually the same exact actor, is going to be coming to the MCU, very similar to how Charlie Cox could be coming back as Daredevil, Vincent D'Onofrio back as Kingpin, stuff like that. So he's saying that he is coming back, and he doesn't specify where, what project is going to be, but he just says, I just don't know about him in Echo. So Echo, again, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be the spin-off from the Hawkeye Disney Plus series. That is a character that's going to be introduced in that series, and according to other reports, we're going to be seeing both Daredevil and Kingpin in that series. So this source says that we may not see Bullseye in that project, but maybe we'll be seeing him in this Daredevil project that is being developed for the MCU. Again, we don't know for sure. It is just a rumor, just a report from a source this point in time, but it's really interesting to think about, because again, Daredevil is such a great character, and he definitely deserves to be in the MCU. He deserves his own project, and it is interesting how they don't say specifically series. So again, it could totally be an MCU Daredevil movie, but I think me, along with most fans, would prefer the series format because it works so well with the Netflix Daredevil series. So I think that's what I prefer. Definitely, it's a much better way to flesh out the character and develop their story. But either way, I mean, a movie would be cool too. We got a Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, so why not a Charlie Cox Daredevil movie? But again, I would definitely prefer this series over the movie format. So guys, after hearing all this news today from these multiple rumors and sources and all that good stuff, would you like to see a solo Daredevil project in the MCU? Would you like it to be a series or a movie? What characters would you like to see return from the Netflix Daredevil series? And just, are you glad that Daredevil's back? Because I know I am, and I am so excited to see this, especially if he pops up in No Way Home, because that's going to be a crazy movie. But for now, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.